started. I am Rachael Rollins, the District Attorney of Suffolk County. I am so excited. We are starting in Black History Month, something that I call Black Excellence. And the first of 4 panels this month is going to be about emerging leaders in Black excellence. And these are 4. There are many, but we selected these wonderful 4 to speak with me tonight. They are each in their own right outstanding. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. We're just going to do brief introductions, and then we're going to start a conversation that's hopefully going to be free-flowing between the 5 of us. So the first person I have the pleasure of introducing is Carrie Mays. She is a sophomore student at UMass Boston who's majoring in business management with a concentration of marketing and minoring in political science. For the past 4 years, she's been a youth organizer at the Center for Teen Empowerment, and working alongside with other elected officials, amazing other elected officials, such as Boston City Councilor at Large, Julia Mejia, and our amazing Congresswoman, Ayanna Pressley. This young woman is a social justice activist and warrior for herself and her community. She's doing tremendous work in the community, engaging socially, civically, and politically. And she has facilitated large-scale racism dialogues, voter registration parties, community cookouts, and movie nights. So that is Carrie, who we will be hearing from in a moment. The next individual is Carl Jean Luis, better known as CJ, who is a longtime resident of Boston. CJ is motivated by his life experience and passion for social equity and justice. He uses civic engagement as a tool to gain the knowledge and resources that will connect and empower the community that he serves, ultimately creating a better Boston. He currently works as a community liaison in the office, we're seeing a theme here, of yet another fantastic elected official, Boston City Councilor Andrea Campbell, who is also a candidate for mayor of Boston right now. And CJ also runs a youth men's group at Boston Arts Academy. His personal issues of focus are affordable housing, youth development, and public safety. He graduated from Bridgewater State University with a BA in criminal justice. Third of 4 is Ariana Constant Patton. She is has worked at Teen Empowerment as well, more themes, right? She has done an internship in my office, so I know her personally. She worked and organized the March for Our Lives here in Boston in the spring of 2018, where we all recall there were almost over 100,000 people gathered to march against the gun violence that we saw. And what I was really proud of is, although we focus oftentimes on these isolated, unfortunately significant and constant at times school shootings, where there are mass shootings that are happening, Ariana talked not just about the tragedy of that, but that the fact that you could go into Boston or any other urban community any day and see gun violence, not on such a high and national scale. She has done amazing work with teen empowerment, focusing on violence intervention and prevention, specifically in the ages of 14 to 21-year-olds in the Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan area. She is currently working on a photography and painting series called What is Black Joy and Why Can't America See It?, to showcase the joy and success that the media doesn't show. And last but certainly not least, we have Danny Rivera Jr., who I just saw one of his beautiful pieces that he did. Today is Congresswoman Pressley's birthday, and mine is in a month, and I am demanding that you do something wonderful. I just was so moved by the piece you put together of splicing images and video of her over your beautiful voice. So Danny works, again, a theme, right, with the Boston City Council president, who is a Roxbury native and is the soon-to-be acting mayor of the city of Boston, first woman, first person of color ever, Kim Janey. And he is also, is a teaching assistant artist resident at Berklee College of Music, where he creates and implements daily lesson plans and conducts rehearsals and manages accountability for student assessments. He's worked at the Boston Arts Academy in focusing on music theory, practice, and composition of music. I love that he is a circle training keeper, or was there, where he facilitated mediation circles for teachers and students in resolving conflict and disputes in a productive and safe manner. These life skills that he's teaching these students and teachers are ones that are going to be able to be implemented for the rest of their lives with conflict, which we all know we've had. He was one of the organizers for the Boston celebration of Congressman John Lewis, which was a beautiful event that I attended as well. And he is a graduate of the Longy School of Music of Bard College. So this is our outstanding panel of exceptional young leaders. I want to start by saying, if we could do just a quick check-in, I'm going to ask you round quick. How old are you, and what are 2 or 3 words that you're feeling right before we talk about whatever we're about to talk about, with the understanding that I get to control this entire narrative. So CJ, let's start with you. How old are you, and what are a couple words before we get started? We'll check in at the end to see if they're the same words or you feel a little better.
I'm 25. Hi, everyone. I'm feeling blessed, excited, and grateful. Good to see you all and glad to be here.
I love it. All right, Carrie, let's go to you. How old are you, and a couple words about how you're feeling?
My name is Carrie, and I just turned 20. So I'm feeling rooted and pretty empowered right now.
I love it. I love it. Ariana?
I am 18. I'm feeling empowered, encouraged, and excited.
And Danny?
Similar to Carrie, I just turned 20 as well. And I feel very rooted and deeply grateful to be in virtual community with you all.
Unbelievable. So it is really true. I am going to be 50 on March 3rd, and I could literally be all of your moms. So we're moving on from that. So let me talk to you guys. We find ourselves right now, or the country is claiming that we are at a reckoning. I think many people, even as young as you, recognize that the murder of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor was not something new. We had seen this many, many times before. I like to say this is precisely why Colin Kaepernick took a knee and everyone lost their proverbial you-know-what when it happened. You are young enough to not have been alive during the civil rights movement, right? But how is the fight for civil rights different or the same that we find ourselves in right now for your generation? So let's go backwards. Danny, why don't you start with that question?
Sure. I agree that in many ways there have been waves of advocacy and during the civil rights movement, but it has never ended, in my opinion. We have been fighting for justice and equity forever. And I will also say that, many people are striving to be in a position of racial reckoning, but we really need to be in a space and position of racial retention, constantly doing the work to make sure that in all aspects and everything that we do, we are doing the work of dismantling racial caste. So it's that continuous progress and that continuous movement that I believe we are still in, and we have the power to push it and keep the momentum behind it moving.
Love it. All right, Ariana.
Yeah, similar light. I feel like, obviously the civil rights has never ended. We're still fighting for our lives every single day. Young people that I work with every single day, and even myself and my peers, it's like we're running from death every single day. And it's the fact of the matter that we're still doing things like, well, not currently because of COVID, but, marches, sit-ins, things like that. We're still doing those things. Those things have never changed. The only thing that's different is the year, in all honesty, and a couple of, written laws and that type of thing. But other than that, we're still in this fight, and we're going to continue this fight until we actually get justice, because there are small things that are happening, especially with the new presidency and things like that. But other than that, we're still fighting. We're still going to be fighting.
Yeah, and to hear you say we're running from death, right? It's not just police that are, over policing us, or my office that frequently over prosecutes our offices. It's environmental, right? When we think about Flint, Michigan, when we think about Chelsea, Massachusetts, or Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan, where are our green spaces, right? When we think about Chelsea, right, that has the Tobin Bridge going through it, Logan Airport flying over it, one of the largest private food distribution centers with all these 18-wheelers, those are toxins and emissions. That's higher levels of COPD and asthma, which are comorbidity factors for what? COVID-19, right? So it's why Chelsea is in Everett and places that are, turning, right? People of color live there now, where we are running from death, right? In so many different ways. And then we think about the quick death and the slow death of even the like widening, canyon between the haves and the have-nots with our education system, right? Many of our communities of color, we are on IEPs or English language learners. Now that everything's virtual, it's changing. So, CJ, when you hear about the fight for civil rights, what's different? What's the same about, what you learned when you were, you're 25. So maybe you know a little bit more than the 18, the 20-year-old, but what's different for you or the same?
I'd like to highlight everything that Ariana and Danny both said in regards to racial disparities. I think that we're facing a lot of the same social injustices that used to be blatant discrimination and blatant segregation, right? But we've come to a time and place where a lot of them have been reinvented to look like racial policy that causes racial disparities in issues such as housing, wealth, education, things of that sort. When I look at the differences, I think that social media and the globalization of the world is a powerful tool. It takes away the ability for people to cause a blind eye at the injustices that we're facing, and kind of puts it in your face, right? I think that along with that, we also have the hyper consumption of Black culture, which, just put in my own words, it's like you can't really sip the juice and not feel it. So people who are listening to our music, they're hearing our pain, they're also hearing our joy. And at this new generation, there's a lot of individuals who have parents who may have been racist or assimilationists, right? But as they're taking on our culture and diving into that, they're learning more about us. They're in schools more with individuals that are us, that are whether you're people of color or Black, right? And I think that is allowing us to have more of allyship and bringing some change. So I think those are some differences.
I love it, CJ. Right. So when I was a child, which none of you guys were alive, we would literally go to sleep and have to wake up and get the newspaper, physically open up a newspaper to read what it is that happened the next day. Now, sadly, with vicarious trauma, I saw the murder of George Floyd. I saw the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. There's no difference. No, I was not physically present, but as you watch that over and over and over again, it's the trauma that we experience. I love that you pointed out the hyperconsumption of Black culture. We are the most culturally appropriated people on the planet, right? Every white person you see with bronzer on or lips that look like this, or, adding things and roundness, that's all us. Spices, you're welcome, world, right? So we got to recognize that if we weren't this dope, all the hate is because we are magically dope, right? For real. And so, but it still hurts when it happens. So Carrie, talk to me about what you see different, what you see the same, and anything you want to piggyback on or start new that you want us to hear.
First off, I want to say I agree with everyone that just spoke. And to bring it full circle, I like to use the saying, same crap, different toilet. I feel like even though we're in different times, we're still fighting against this machine of white supremacy and trying to dismantle it. I feel like what I see a lot of is a lot of Black and brown leaders from our communities stepping into positions like yours, Rachael Rollins, like Ayanna Presley, Julia Mejia, City Councilor at Large. And I think that's very important. I think that's a huge difference. We see the Stacey Abrams, right? Strategically organizing during an unprecedented pandemic. So I think that the similarities is the fact that we are fighting the same oppressional machine. And I think the differences is like CJ said, technology and utilizing that platform. Also the over traumatization that we as Black and brown people are getting used to. We're getting used to seeing Black and brown people die in our faces. And not just die in our faces, but also our family members, the streets, and things of that nature. And I think one of the biggest differences is that we're organizing during a pandemic, a ravaging pandemic. And that's why I consider Black and brown activists like me, Ariana, CJ, and Danny, who's been on the front line organizing these protests in Boston, as essential workers, because we are essential workers.
I love it. I love it. And when I think about Stacey Abrams, I say, you know, that governorship was stolen from her. And rather than pout and frown and fuss and fight, which, you know, I have to work on not doing as much of that myself, she just rolled up her little, you know, sleeves, got to work, and Georgia is blue. And she flipped 2 US Senate seats. And now we have an opportunity that is unheard of. I'm telling you, there better be a statue erected to the glory of Stacey Abrams in Georgia moving forward. And you're right, we are desensitized, right? Now when we hear something, Carrie, it's like, well, did they die? And it's like, wait a minute, that can't be the standard, right? Jacob Blake is alive, right? But paralyzed for the rest of his life. We have an entirely new population of disabled individuals, not just physical impairments, but the trauma that you experience when you interact with law enforcement. And remember, our tax dollars pay for the DA's office. Our tax dollars pay for the police. Our tax dollars pay for the mayor. So it's the police that harm us, the DA that looks the other way and doesn't prosecute them, the mayor that gives them indemnification. So, oh, you don't have to pay for this yourself. The city will. And then when we pay that money out, it's taxpayer dollars that happen. So walk me through, CJ, and this, you get a little bit more time. Tell me what you yourself, in your activism, how are you changing or opening our eyes with respect to the civil rights movement we find ourselves in right now? So walk us through a little bit about what your maybe, you know, venue is, whether it is, you know, organizing, whether it's art, music, whether it is, you know, speaking out or you know, having panels, whatever the forum is that you use. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to tell us what you're doing and how you are changing. Thanks.
Thank you. Definitely organizing and public speaking. I see my work as a youth mentor and as very powerful by teaching youth the power they have, encouraging them to be more civically engaged, politically engaged. Also, I'm a part of a couple different strategies and initiatives that are going on right now. One is the Boston Collaborative Governance Initiative, which is essentially a new group of individuals from the non-profit sector, academia, governance, and community residents that are coming together to really find tools and create a framework that will create a truly inclusive, transparent, and empowering way of collaborating with government and these other stakeholders. We're just beginning this work. It stemmed from a project that was early on with some MIT students that really got some good work coming out. And I know that Carrie mentioned the fact that, you know, we're in this time of COVID-19 and we're doing a lot of virtual work. And one of the things that came out of that was a Getting Connected project where this group of individuals created a Zoom step-by-step guide for seniors so that they could easily learn how to use Zoom without having to feel the anxiety and things of sorts that come with it. I joined a leadership team at a civic association in my neighborhood, really working to grow membership in that space and create more diversity. I'm working with some leaders in Bowdoin, Geneva to build up a committee that can look at how to strategically and equitably fund the neighborhood with some funding that's coming through within the next couple of months and years. So I'm really excited for that work. But I think one huge thing for me is definitely just the grassroots. I show up as myself unapologetically, don't apologize for it. I add me into whatever I'm doing. And, if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but that's me. And I think people really see that. I'm happy about it, and I'll pass it on. Thank you.
I love it, CJ. I think that's amazing that, Carrie, reading about you and the self-love journey that you've had and the ability as Black women and, to come to work authentically as we are, right? And not have to, blow dry our hair or wear something different or dull our shine, for other people, right? Walk me through what or how you are changing the world in this moment. Oops, you're muted, I think, still, sweetie.
Thank you.
Good.
Most recently, I was one of the youth that helped organize one of the biggest Black Lives Matter protests in Boston for George Floyd. In addition to recently getting over 320 people to vote in the city of Boston through a movement that we created called Gang Votes. And that was also through teen empowerment, the Boston Community Action Team, a group of young people, and I, including Ariana. We formulated this movement called Gang Votes, and we were out in the community in now known as Nubian Square, in different parts of Dorchester, Mattapian, Hyde Park, getting our people registered to vote. And not only that, I have also been blessed enough to be invited to national conferences and academic institutions across the country, where I've spoken as a motivational speaker and youth panelist in places like Chicago, Washington, D.C., and Virginia, speaking upon topics of addressing racism, youth civic engagement, and system inequalities. Most recently, I was awarded the Boston Mountaintop Award for my work in honor of MLK with youth civic engagement. So that's a little bit of the work that I do. But yeah, right now we're working to increase the amount of civic engagement in Black and Brown communities where it is critically low and trying to turn around that turnout.
Yeah. And what I think is amazing, for me, I believe, so I ran for office at the age of, 46. And never, I thought I was a great American because I voted. And now that I've run for office, I'm like, oh my God, that's the first rung on a 25 rung ladder, right? We got to get people a little bit more involved, right? For our community, because we are, economically disadvantaged and environmentally disadvantaged and educationally and all these things. If I said to my family, hey, I need each of you to write me a check for $1,000, then I need you to volunteer all weekend at my campaign headquarters, which I can't pay you for, and then show up 3 hours before the parade and stand, they'd be like, I'm sorry, are you crazy? No, right? So we have to explain the process to them. But I also think it's important that we educate them, and nobody needs to feel shame that they don't understand, because I'll be honest, I didn't. What's the difference between the Boston City Council and a state rep or a state senator or a federal, congressperson or a U.S. senator, right? And the governor, how is the governor different than the mayor? And what's the difference between a mayor and a city manager? And what the hell are boards of selectmen? We need to, now that we have the Liz Mirandas, we have and Monica Cannon is not an elected official per se, but she is an elder and a leader in our community, right? As an activist and an adjutant, and we need all of that. What I hope with you guys at the end, and I won't bury the lead, is that maybe some of the things that we can work together about is having, the Liz Mirandas, the Nika Elugardos, the Ricardo Arroyos, the Julia Mejias, and myself come to community and explain in 10 minutes or less, in language that my 17-year-old daughter can understand. Here's what the DA does, and this is why it's important. And she doesn't have to check in with anyone at all. She has the power from the beginning to do this. That's why they hate me so much, is I don't have to get the legislators' approval. I don't have to beg the mayor if I can do this, or the governor. I just basically say, like, yeah, I heard you. No. Please do that now, and then we're done. All right, so Ariana, tell me now, how are you changing the world specifically with all of your glory and your talents?
Well, kind of piecing things that you said about me in the beginning. So I've been working with teen empowerment since I was about 14. I'm now 18. and I'm now associate program coordinator with them. So I'm working with our violence prevention group in order to, educate other young people in the community. Our group as a whole is trying to do that about violence prevention, and also just really yelling out to the elders in the community and things like that, that violence is very different from young people than it is for older people.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it's like right now, young people are having to deal with their mental health because of online schooling, as on top of having to help with their families, especially the young low-income youth who are now essential workers and things like that. That also adds up to the trauma that they're enduring from the violence that's already happening in the community. We saw how at the beginning of the pandemic, how many shootings there were, young people getting killed, and just really sharing out what that means for young people, how that looks for young people, that trauma that's getting built. And I'm a huge advocate for mental health, and that's something that I will ride with. I'm currently a senior at Boston Collegiate Charter School, and our school is very predominantly white. I'm not going to lie. It's in the middle of, Southie and near Mass Ave. So it's like, it's very much in the middle of a low income community and extremely high income community, and just talking to them, advocating to them, especially my peers in the class, about what does trauma look like for young people? What does it look like in terms of how the Capitol relates to us in Boston? We're not directly there and whatever you may have it, but that is still traumatic for us. The same way it was when we had to sit here and watch George Floyd die multiple times around the internet. Like this is something that, one, isn't new, but two, it's like you as a white person, even as a white young person, need to see your privilege and trying to wake them up and say, look, hello, listen, please listen, because you're supporting, a man who really doesn't care about your peers, but you want to sit here and say the N-word. Things like that I'm really advocating for, and things like that. And in addition to that, my project, What is Black Joy and Why Can't White America See It? I'm using art. I'm an artist around Boston, and I do photography. I've shot some nice shots of Carrie, and things like that, and just trying to display how Black joy is not seen in the media. It's not seen in the media, and that's the problem. Why do we have to be killed on camera to be noticed? Not even just that. Why do we have to be killed on camera? We have Elijah McClain, who's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful soul.
I know.
Just for him to be killed, and that's how he was known, besides from his family, until after the fact. Oh, he was a really beautiful light. Yeah, he was a beautiful light, that his life was wrongfully taken. So just trying to use that and use my art to really show people, like, America rides on the backs of Black and brown people all day, every day, but they don't want to see they're actually the beauty of us. And now it's coming out into the media, and I want to really pull it out of Boston, because this study is very monumental. Not even just with the fact that whatever history, white people, whatever you may have it, like us as Black and brown communities in Boston, we're really dope, and I'm trying to really have people see that. And aside from the violence, and trying to help young people also just see what they can do with their trauma and how they could turn it into productivity, because it's hard.
I love it.
They need to heal. But
so I agree. I mean, I think we also need to make sure that with the violence, there are overwhelmingly, it is true, when I have all of my binders around me of sadly, the homicides that have happened and the shootings. But, Xavier Rico, 15 years old on Mount Pleasant Street, right? We have Alyssa King, right, who is a young woman who was murdered, Toplift Street, and I believe 18 years old. We just recently had a young woman, 19 years old, murdered. We need to make sure we are vocal about that. I love you talking about the Capitol insurrection, in the sense of, look at the reaction for that level of, that is DC, which everything in DC is federal. There were at least 30 federal statutes violated when everyone was doing anything, right? And what's funny is I'm the DA in Boston. So for the Black Lives Matter looting that happened, a breaking and entry in the nighttime, I specifically asked these questions. Well, did the 3 people we're charging, were they the one that broke the window into the jewelry store? No. But they set foot in the jewelry store? Yes. And you want to charge them with what? Looting. Okay. Did they steal anything? No. But just walking inside of a jewelry store and, you know, whatever, walking out, that's the crime that we're going to charge these people with. All of those white feet that marched into our Capitol, you know, the noose that was erected, the Confederate flag that was waved inside, that sweatshirt we saw, 6MNE, 6 million, not enough, about the Holocaust. Those were horrible things that people saw, but the people on this panel, that hits us different, right? Like, we believe that, right? And other people, oh, those are just, they're mad. The Duck Dynasty showed up. No, it's not just the Duck Dynasty people. Right now, the same way white people are fearful, maybe when they see, you know, a hooded black man, I'm terrified of white men that aren't identifying themselves, you know, and coming around, because they are the domestic terrorists. If we really think about who is harming our community, it's them. Danny, talk us through, and I hope we get to talk about, and I love that you guys are so creative, not just with your brains, but with your hands and voices and other things. How are you changing the world with your skill and talent?
Sure. Well, you know, to add on what you just said, it reminded me of a quote of James Baldwin that basically, I'll sum it up, or I'll read it and then sum it up. He says, to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. So I will first start off by saying that, one, my life is the resistance. Me waking up every morning is a part of the resistance. But, you know, Nina Simone says that it is the artist's duty to reflect the times in which we live. And being rooted in my work as an artist, I have been tasked. It is my responsibility to make sure that I am reflecting the times in which I live in, but not just reflecting the times, but also projecting the future. So I do, you know, a lot of my work is informed and rooted in that, making sure that in all things I am touching upon different subjects. One of the first conversations that I had with my mother, both my mother and father are rooted in community organizing and doing, you know, similar work. But it was about mass incarceration. And so I asked why I hadn't seen all three of my uncles as often as I should have. And it's because they were all locked up. So I think in many ways that has informed the work that I continue to do as an artist, in writing songs, in creating open spaces. In addition to that, I started an initiative called the Civic Youth Summit, which aims to promote civic engagement, like Carrie was saying, specifically among Black and Brown people and students. Why? Because we know that there's a huge civic engagement gap between Blacks and whites, especially as it pertains to the educational experience. So that's the work that I do. But again, in the words of James Baldwin, my life is a resistance. And so me waking up, me being a Black man in America, is simply how I continue the fight for racial justice.
I love it. I totally love it. So, you know, this work is hard. And, you know, people often ask me, guys, you know, are you taking care of yourself? Like, what's going on? They're coming for you all the time. And, you know, on the outside, I'm like, girl, please, I got this. Right. And then sometimes at home, you know, I'm like, oh my God, who signed up for, you know, all of this? But I'm telling you, you know, hearing each of you at this young age talk about mental health, you know, to tell you when I was your age, you know, I was not 1/100th of the brilliance that I'm seeing on the screen, number one. Number two, all I cared about was physicality, right? Like as a, you know, teenager, it's like, oh, girl, did you see it's Michael B. Jordan, right? Didn't care about any intellectual abilities. As you get older, that will change for you, but that's another panel. But I will say to you, hearing you talk about mental health brings me joy, because as I get older, yes, this is the vessel that I walk through this world in, but the same way that we check up our cars, right? The lights go on and you got to bring your car in because the oil's out or whatever. You get evaluated in school, in your job, you have, you know, physicals, you're getting your teeth. Nobody is checking on mental health enough. CJ, tell me how you unwind, how you take care of yourself so that you are as exceptional as you are all the time. What are your mechanisms by which you make sure that you are whole that you are taking care of yourself and that you are ready, because the fight, I like to quote Nipsey, the marathon continues, right? Like, it is not just 26.2 miles. We are now entering our, 3,000th mile, and you guys are 18, 20, and 25. So imagine how many miles, I'm on. So walk me through, CJ, what you do to bring you joy, but to fill your mental health cup, your spiritual health, the physical health.
First and foremost, prayer. I am a man of faith, and I tap into my prayer. I meditate. I love to work out, spending time with my family. I've really been focused on going out with my siblings on Fridays and just doing different things around the cities with them, city with them. I like to take long drives around, so I'll just hop in my car and go drive somewhere. There's a couple different spots in the city. I think Boston is a beautiful city with a lot of different sightseeing spots. And I think that one thing in particular is that you can find some very kind of hidden ones. And I found a couple that I like to just go sit down by, get a book out, listen to music, dive into writing. So I journal and just tap in with my family and my trusted ones. I have friends who aren't necessarily super politically engaged. And as much as I try and pull them in, I've also learned to lean on them to kind of get me out of that space too, and talk about basketball, talk about hip hop, talk about things that they're going through and things of that sort. So making sure that I have a good balance in my life. And I turn it off when I need a break, when I need to say I'm done for the week or I'm done for the weekend, I'm done. I turn off my phones on Friday, or my emails at least. So if you need me, you have to get to me by phone, by text. And that's kind of how I handle it.
I love it. All right, Carrie, aside from watching the new Alexa commercial with Michael B. Jordan, which if none of you have seen it, please go and watch it later. It's fantastic. How do you unwind? What is your mental health, spiritual health, what have you?
Thank you for asking that question, because sometimes I feel like we all forget to self-reflect sometimes, especially in moments of chaos. I remember when I came from the protest, that was the biggest protest downtown after the white supremacists infiltrated the movement, because that was not our Black organizers, just to make that clear. I went live and I was crying, and shout out to Sheena Collier, because she texted me and she was like, sis, it's okay. Get off of social media. The purpose of white supremacy is to have you beat. And honey, if I'm going to be beat any type of way, it's going to be through my makeup. So, that is the essence of white supremacy, so that us as Black and brown people would give up. And so I think what I've been doing lately is just disconnecting from, sometimes we have to disconnect from reality to become in tune and connected to ourselves. I'm a spiritual person. I like to meditate. I also like to journal. When I was younger, my mother used to force me to go write. And I never understood why. But she, I'd be mad, go write about it. I'd cry, go write about it. But, I think I'm very thankful for that, because I think in the educational system, we don't really teach our Black and brown children how to articulate their own feelings and express their own feelings. And so what I've been doing as a form of self-care is really just getting into journaling. We always teach our Black and brown children to read, but when do we ever teach them to write their own stories, write their own narratives, express how they're feeling, learn how to articulate how they're feeling so that they can feel validated through their own thoughts, so that I know I'm not crazy.
You're right.
So I'm also a poet too. I'm also a singer, a spoken word artist. I have this spoken word called Gentrification that has gone viral. But all of that is because I was able to sit, manifest in my own feelings, get it out. And I encourage that upon everybody here and everybody that's been experiencing hard times.
I love it. So I would love it if our team could find that spoken word Gentrification, maybe put it in the chat, or certainly I will watch that later tonight. When I hear you talk, Carrie, about like our ability to voice our frustration, and the quote you gave, Danny, about, James Baldwin in a constant state of rage, right? There is a piece where I am very unapologetic about, listen, if I have to explain to you that there's systemic racism, I'm done. I'm tired. You need to catch up. The bus is moving. Either jump on a moped, maybe not carjack somebody, but catch up on your own. And please, like, when we get here to the point where really what we just saw on January 6th, I have to tell you there's systemic racism. When I see Danny and you as a circle training keeper, before you get to your joy, can you just explain to us how important that work you do is, where students on the same like playing field level with teachers get to have their voice heard, and how those skills can sort of hopefully trickle into the rest of your life, with being able to say, even in the moment, and I need to do this better, I am piping hot, right? I'm not ready to talk right now. Or if you are, for the spiritual people, put your earmuffs on, because it's about to get ugly and very gangster in about 2 seconds, right? I need to be able to say, Rachel, not now, right? Put your head down, walk in your house, hypothetically, right? You get it, right? But my point is, Danny, talk to me about circles, please. And then I want to hear about your joy and how you do it. So 2 things for us. Walk us through why they're so important. And then I'd love your answer to the other question.
Yeah, well, in my time at the Boston Arts Academy, when I was a student there, we would do a lot of circle trainings and circle keepings as a way to reflect, like Carrie says, on the different things that, either we're dealing with personally at home, or some of the issues that we may be talking about that we may also be affected by, but maybe speaking about in class. I think that what is so special about circle keeping and training is that when you have circles, you are able to hear from others. You're able to be in that state of retention and reflection, to be able to hear what others are saying, but also there's room for you to share what is on your heart and on your mind. It is important, like Carrie's saying, that we uplift the voices of those who have been suppressed. And in my faith belief, we say that, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So in that fight to overcome, in that fight to experience what freedom looks like, what it feels like, we must tell our story. And so what Circle does is it allows us the space to operate and function in the realms of restorative justice, looking at things from that lens, so that people can find healing through speaking and sharing and listening.
Yeah, I love it. All right. And tell me now, what is your joy? How do you refill yourself, your mental, your spiritual, your physical? What do you do to make sure that you are full when you go out every day? And I know your life is a resistance, but we have to be full, right? Because the arrows and spears are coming at us constantly, more than some of our peers. So what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's possible or is the healthiest thing to try and do if you are constantly pouring out and no one, or you are not pouring back into yourself. I would say in my downtime, I'm doing a lot of reading. I do reflect, I do pray, I do meditate, and I do this often, but there are a lot of times when I will have my screen open, because we all have been on our screens for the past year, almost going on 2. And I will not feel grounded at all. So I literally will lay on the ground. Wow. And that is how I will plant myself, take back my territory, and remind myself of the peace that has been promised to me and to everyone.
I love it. I love it. It's funny, I saw something recently about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And people don't talk about that happiness piece enough, right? We are entitled. When I hear Ariana, you talk about Black joy, we are entitled to be happy, right? And it is a God-given right that we need to yank back and claim, right? And hold it as a shield, right? So Ariana, tell me what you do in your 18-year young little self to make sure that you are well.
Carrie's looking at me with a face right now, because I know daggone well I do not do any self-care. I am probably the worst human being to ask about self-care, because I'm such a hypocrite. I will tell you to take care of yourself, and I will be the first one to forget to eat that day. And I'm not going to sit here and lie, because it's the truth. I'm the type of person that continues to run. I'm always running until I hit that wall. And once I hit that wall, sure, I'll try a little self-care, whatever you may have, some water and relax, try to at least. But When I do get to those moments where I'm just like, you know what, it'd probably be helpful to do something for myself for once. I'll look into buying some poetry books. I'll read them in my free time. I'm also a poet. I do write. It's been a long time coming for me to get back into my writing. I took a couple years break from it because writing signifies a lot of different things for me. I am passionate about writing, but it's not always the easiest always. And in addition to that, I listen to music on all the time. 25/8. Like I'll be on Facebook with my friends and they'll hear music in the background. You know how they do the Spotify and Apple Music reports at the end of the year? I have over 20,000 hours of listening to music. Not 20,000 hours, 20,000 minutes of listening to music in a year. And all my friends look at me like I'm crazy. I always have music on because it's just, if you have something that's kind of grounding, like Danny was saying, I sit on the ground too. I love sitting on the floor. I lay down on the floor. People think I'm crazy. I'll be at my brother's house. I'll sit on the floor and he's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just sitting here. It's comfortable. So like things like that, like music to me is my grounding because it's just like, if you need something that's going to steady you, it's definitely music. You always have that in the background. I remember sitting in the back of Rachel's car one day during my internship. I just remember her playing Roddy Ricch, and I'm like, okay, yes.
It was my daughter's music, I know. But I do love Roddy Ricch too. But listen, and that's the other thing. I have Boston police detectives that drive me everywhere, and I'm like, this is my space. In the car,
Yep.
I get to listen to what I want. I'm not assimilating into your culture. Either put on some earbuds and listen to whatever you want to listen to, but this is who I am in my car. All right, so these questions are not normal, but they're important to me. CJ, who is your hero or shiro and why?
Oh, heroes and sheroes. I would say that I look at a lot of the local leaders as heroes and sheroes because they're the individuals who are putting their lives deeply rooted into the work, right? Going out there every day. So individuals like Katia Mendez, Marcus Lewis, when we talk about Donald Osgood Jr., Lavelle Folks, individuals like that, right? Who are out on the ground, constantly looking at how to recreate the work without reinventing the wheel, right? And dealing with different barriers and struggles that makes it hard for them to do the work, but still finding that renewed energy every single day to get up and really take this battle on. And I think what stands out to me is that they're the individuals who are deeply connected to those most impacted. And that's hard work. Everyone's work, this work in general is not easy, but to get out there and to do that work every single day and to bring your full self to it and to sometimes go out of your way to support people when you don't even have it says a lot about you, your character. And it's something that I want to see myself, a role I see myself playing as well. So I really appreciate them for that. And
love it. Danny, heroes, sheroes, local, state, national, alive, not alive, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'll show you. I don't know if you can see, but that is
John Lewis.
Congressman John Lewis,
So
who
good.
is my hero. And like I said on my post today, wishing her a happy birthday, Congresswoman Presley is also another one of my sheroes.
Dope. Just
Yeah, so
dope.
inspiring. So inspiring. And to know that John was our age, 1965, when he crossed over on that bridge, fighting for our rights and nearly died to death, right? Or was killed.
I love died to death. I'm going to say that from now on. No, I hear you. That's a serious almost death, but
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's just
Agreed.
inspiring to know that this is not new, that there are those who have blazed a trail and we get to follow in their footsteps.
Yeah. And, just I was reading about him. It's like over 20 arrests, and kept going back. And that's a badge of honor because he knew it was wrong. Carrie, heroes or sheroes?
For me, I feel like it's my ancestors, because I'm here because I had ancestors who loved me enough to fight for me before they even knew my name, before they even knew that I existed. And to me, that's love. And I also think that, faith is to believe in something that you can't see. And the fact that they believed that one day that their children, that their grandchildren like me would have justice is something that's beautiful to me. Like John Lewis, Dr. Martin Luther King, and thousands of Black women are my sheroes, men and children. They are the true OGs of the Black Lives Matter movement who laid the foundation down for youth and adults like us in our generation to make revolutionary noise. And sometimes, I have to go back to my history because, I forgot who said it. I'm blinking right now, but a historian said, not knowing your history is like being a motherless child. And so I'm a huge believer in knowing your history. I'm a descendant of a Moor. My grandfather's last name was a Moor, who, were Black and brown people who conquered the world for some time. So I'm a huge believer in going back to your roots, staying grounded, and my ancestors are my heroes for me.
I love it. Ariana?
I'm struggling. My bad. My heroes, definitely top hero right now. AOC. My initials are ACP. I got a little similarity there, but
That's right. Of course you do.
she's so amazing. Coming from being a bartender and things like that, seeing her story is it's enlightening, as well as Ayanna Presley, of course, our Boston queen and things like that. And also, this is not just to kiss up to you, Rachel, but definitely you are one of my heroes, and I really do appreciate being able to have that opportunity to work in your office, because just being able to see a woman that looks like me in this position, it being able to just see, you're just like, no, I want this done right now. And I'm just like, I want to do that too. I want to be able to put
no,
my
I know.
foot down and not
You'll
say sorry.
see. I'm telling you, I have said before, men are considered, he's tough but fair. And when a woman says it, it's somehow that we're combative, or, like other words that we aren't going to say on this now. But okay, next and most important, favorite song right now, what you're listening to over and over and over again, Danny. Don't try to be biblical now, because if it's like 2 Chainz or something, like Cardi B's WAP remix, I want to know the truth about you. Go ahead. What is it?
Well, that's a great question. Right now, I'm listening to a lot of, for a class actually that I have after this, that I have to perform one of her songs. But Ma Rainey, who is a blues artist, I'm listening to some of the music. But I'm in love with Leon Bridges. He's one of my favorites. And River is one of my favorite songs that I will always go back to. As well as Say a Little Prayer by Aretha Franklin. I know you only asked for one.
God, I just got goosebumps. Aretha, Say a Little Prayer is so good. All right, CJ, what are you listening to right now? And don't lie to us, because I will find, I'm the DA, I will find out. I'll get a wire for you. No,
I got you.
Go ahead. All right, what is it?
One artist huge right now is Benny the Butcher. He has a song with Russ called Momentum. The next one is Evolution by Joyner Lucas. And I would say those two are the ones that I have right now on repeat 24/7.
I love it. What about you, Carrie? What do you listen to?
I like to listen to, when I know that I have a big event coming up, I like to listen to Coachella by Beyonce. The live performances, because I need to hear the bands, trumpets, and all of that. It just makes me feel like I'm on a higher level. Also, I'm not going to say the whole thing, but I love Jhené Aiko featuring her song Back Up on My BS.
Oh, yes.
Because sometimes you just have to remind yourself you are that queen. And then last but not least, The Universe by Kehlani featuring, I'm blinking, but it's called The Universe. And it talks about how the universe, I am destined to be blessed. The universe must want me to win.
Yeah. So, I love that. I love it. Ariana, what about you?
My 2 top 2s right now, Good Days, SZA, of course.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that's everybody's like right now. It's so lifeful. And then Girl Like Me by Jasmine Sullivan featuring her. Both those songs give me life, soul, all the things. And Danny, you hit me hard with Leon Bridges. Oh my goodness. My heart will always go out to him. So all of his music.
Love it. All right. Okay. So mine is Soko 7, Don't Like Me, which I've just been blaring because it makes me smile. And I have to remember, like, when people come for you, they don't come for people that aren't doing anything, right? Like, they only start hating when you are getting close to something happening. All right. So our last question for each of you is going to be, if you could ask one of the people on this panel a question, you can either do one of 2 things. You can ask them a question, or you can tell me what you would like an elected official, and if you want to use their name or not, to do with you in the future. So a question of another panelist or something you'd like to collaborate on with one of the electeds. And if you want to answer both, you can, or one, but you have to answer one of them. And then we will end so Danny can go to class and other people's can go elsewhere. And no matter what, even if I'm not the person you want to collaborate with, I am going to be reaching out to the four of you to make sure that we are doing things together, because it is important, not just that I mentor you if you want it, but it is very important that you hear me say, you mentor me, right? With respect to the way that you're moving, the things that are happening, your boots on the ground, et cetera. So one of those two questions, and then we will end once we're done. Let's start with Ariana.
My first question goes out to Danny. Danny, I would love it if you could just hit me up and just tell me your whole life story, so then I can see where you came from and how it got you here, because you are extremely successful and I want to learn from your footsteps. And then Rachel, I would love it if you could possibly come and speak to my young people at our violence prevention group. Ricky and Danielle, they got all the connects with TE. And
the answer is yes, of course I will. All right, excellent. Good. Those are two. CJ, you're one or two, both, or choose.
My first one would be Danny. I think you have really good public speaking skills. So if you got any tips, trades on that, definitely want to connect and hear how you got to use your voice and make it so powerful. And then I just have an ask for our elected officials and local activists to really come together for this next election and strategically plan what we're gonna do with the Black vote. I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, and I want to see it done so that our vote isn't split in so many different ways.
I love it. All right, Carrie.
First of all, CJ, great minds think alike, because that's exactly what I was thinking. For elected officials, I also want to see more implementation of youth voice, amplifying youth voices, bringing them to the table, because we are one of the most ignored demographics in Boston. However, when we come out to vote, especially Black and brown vote. And a question that I have for all of you is, why are we so dope and just drenched in Black excellence? Giving me life. So that was my question.
It's amazing. It's just, the answer is because. All right, Danny, you get to end with this. All right, anything you want to ask any of the people on the panel, and what would you like to work with an elected official or the elected officials in Boston and across our state?
Yeah, I mean, I have questions for everyone, but it's just a side question because I'm nosy. CJ, I'd love to know how long you've been working at BAA and who you're working with and how you're finding community there. That's my home, so shout out to Boston Arts Academy, Boston's only public high school for the performing arts. And then DA, I would love to speak with you more and pick your brain about mass incarceration and the school to prison pipeline and how can we find creative ways to keep young Black men in particular in school and finding, that their presence matters as a way to limit the amount of gang and gun violence and prosecution and incarceration rates among their group.
I love it. So the answer is absolutely yes. We will speak to you, Danny. Ariana, that's a yes to speak to your small group. And then with respect to CJ and Carrie, I pledge to make sure that, let's decide who the people are that you want to be speaking about this. Let's get a good cross section of individuals, and then let's start thinking about this, because we have a mayoral race that's coming up, right? We have sheriffs are very important as to who your sheriff is when those come up, right? We have a sheriff in Massachusetts that thinks it's appropriate to sick unmuzzled dogs on ICE detainees in his care, right? But what I think and hope this panel has shown is that these individuals, with all of their youth and vigor, are so significantly more exceptional than certainly me at this age and even now. So we are looking at our future. You guys make me very, very proud. And I feel, you know, Ariana, I watched AOC. She's one of the only people that I can watch. I'm like, it's 3 hours long and I'm literally watching every second. When she was saying, like, she thought she was going to die, and she said, if this is my time, like, the people are I feel good about where we are and the people are going to take over. I feel the same way. So thank you all four. We will be in touch. This is what Black excellence looks like, these four gorgeous faces. Thank you for everything. Be well tonight, okay? And keep taking care of yourself and wake up tomorrow ready to fight, okay? Thank you guys. Be well.